Meeting of the Fargo Board of Education. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will look for approval of our agenda. Melissa?
I move approval of the agenda with the HC addendum.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Melissa and a second from Jason. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposition, same sign. And that motion passes 9-0. At this point, we'll recognize the audience. However, we don't have anyone signed up. So we're just going to move right along to our reports. I don't think we have an FEA report. Is that correct? I don't see Laura out there. Okay. So then it is now time for our administrative report, and I'll turn to Dr. Steiner. Looks like Dr. Gross and Missy Eidsness are all going to share with us this evening. Do you want to use your mic, please? Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, I do want to use my mic. So a couple things to celebrate is we held our opener last Thursday, and I had given you an update in my weekly report to you. The 3 speeches given by our staff of the year really reinforced our theme of Stronger Together. We asked them to try to build that in there, but they really did just a fantastic job with that. Despite their nerves, they really did a great job representing the various groups that they were selected by. So if you haven't had a chance to potentially watch that or see that, take just a few minutes. You got a little good humor, but some really good, strong emotion of people you could see were really proud to work in this district and proud to be part of something that's bigger than just themselves. So I think that's a great thing to celebrate. I would also celebrate standards-based instruction team, Dr. Hansen's team, have really done a nice job of presenting and getting PD out to all of our staff. Took some feedback in terms of how do we reduce some of the things to make it more manageable, especially because honestly, every teacher wants to learn and grow, but they want to be in their classrooms right now because no matter what, tomorrow those kids are coming back. But her team did a really good job of making it manageable and really giving people the time to collaborate and work with one another. So I really appreciated that. One thing to know is we completed our architect interviews today. So Mr. Westrick, Mr. Han, myself, and Rob from Wolpert, we conducted 3 of those interviews of our 3 top, and we have selected one. We won't announce that tonight, but we're getting the memo ready, and you'll be able to vote in that in our first September meeting. So the project is moving forward, and I will say, I'll speak for maybe Bill and James to say we were wowed and really excited about the vision that this company is going to bring to this project. And they understood very well how to mix tradition with the future, and had some really unique ideas to do that I think will be fun for all of us to be able to collaborate around. And then the other thing that's been happening the last 3 to 4 days when our teachers are back is our cabinet has made an effort to get out to all the sites. We scheduled time in our days. We went out as a team. Some of them we've split. I think we hit every campus through today, hit every single campus, including operations. It's something that seemed really well received by our staff in the buildings. Enough received that we've decided we're going to do it again in December and brave the elements a little bit, and then do it again in late April or early May. So try 3 times a year for all of us to get out into the buildings. A lot of this was just saying, welcome, thank you, what do you need? A lot of them were saying they need $1 million and a bunch of supplies. So I told Dr. McKenna that he can't ask that question anymore. But I will say Dr. McKenna brought this up at cabinet, and we're like, it's going to be tough. But we said, let's try it. And I think it probably filled our bucket as cabinet members as much as those that were out in the building. So thanks, Jeff, for pushing on us to do that. And thanks, everybody, for going out and being willing to do that. So those are my big things.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. So enrollment report now? Does that work? Okay, so let's turn it over to Dr. Gross and Missy Eidsness.
Okay, so in front of you, Bob and I decided just to put something for us to look at as we go through enrollment. This is on the eve of school starting, and so usually our numbers will even change throughout the week. Right now, if we look at the K-5 enrollment, RSP was expecting that we'd have 5,136 students, and as of today at 4:47, we have 5,103. I think what we need to notice is that I have a percentage column in there. That is telling you if you're at 100%, RSP is right on. If it's over 100%, it's telling you what percentage RSP are larger than they predicted, and if it's under. So we're very proud of the numbers they give us because most of the time we are. It's about 99% it has there. But kindergarten is the one that is lagging this year, and we were concerned about it even starting in July with the numbers. I will say that last year, the week before school started, we had just a higher uptick of enrollments that we took. It was not as high this year, so it's just something we're watching. So being 90 students down from what we predicted is just, kindergarten's always tough for us, trying to figure out how we estimate that. So we'll have to put a little bit of thought in that for next year. As we go forward, I'm going to scroll to the bottom. This year is the first year I just want to put our ECSE numbers. So that's where we're starting, 149. Last year we started at 163. It's a rolling enrollment. So when kids turn 3, we have 30 to 60 days to work with them if they need to be in ECSE. On the right, there's special programs. And so, for example, the elementary students at the Explorer Academy, we have 12 enrolled. Last year at this time, we had 15. And so just so you can take a look. One thing we also, just because of the data has gotten smaller and smaller, the virtual academy for elementary, last year we started at 6. We probably went up to 8. This year we're starting with 2. It is not a choice we're finding at the elementary level many parents pick, and we just have to talk about that too, if that's an option we want in our district. But I'm going to turn it over to Bob for the secondary part. I'm sorry, just the last thing. We do have 25 students who have just begun the registration process that hopefully will add to our numbers here that we see. So, Dr. Gross.
So then if you look at rows 12 through 20, that's the data for our middle school through high school. Just like elementary, column B is the number of students that are enrolled right now, the number of students that we created schedules for. Column C then is the prediction from the demographer, and then D is your plus or minus. So you can see that their numbers were fairly tight and very close as we looked at middle school. And then in high school as well, there is some variance as you look at high school, and that's probably where we see the biggest variance. For example, if you look in column F and you look at those juniors and seniors last year, you'll see those were very large classes of 900 plus students. Then you compare that to column B, we just have one grade band, a little bit smaller than the other. So as we look at numbers as we go through the system, we are very close to where we were last year in middle school, up about 40 students. We are close to where we were last year at high school, down about 60 some students. But again, most of that is due to that one larger class graduating and a smaller class coming up next to them. And then on the bottom, Missy, if you wouldn't mind, the data for the same special programs are in rows 25 through 28. What I really want to draw your attention to would be the virtual academy at the high school. And we have 129 students currently enrolled in our virtual academy at the high school, which is larger than last year. Same number of middle schoolers this year, last year. A wonderful service for those students at the high school who that modality, that way of learning is really meeting their needs. So that's just an update of where we are currently, I believe at 4:47 today.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments for Bob and Missy? Greg, sorry.
If you could scroll down on row 25, column F, is SD, is that self-directed academy? Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Okay, Robin, did you have a?
And so typically we see another enrollment report about at which date, which we can kind of consider a stable number. Is that after Labor Day?
Yes, we do wait till after Labor Day.
Okay, that'll give us a more accurate. Okay, thank you.
Holly?
Just to follow on that, so I see on the bottom here, you've got 25 kindergarten students that are beginning the registration process. Does that mean that they're not included in that top number?
That is correct. Until they have their, the requirements for enrollment turned in, they do not go into a class.
Okay, so if you could scroll up just for
Yep.
me for a second. So, I mean, that makes it, almost a fourth of that chunk, if
It
you will,
does.
of what we were down predicting on. Also, I know that like nationwide, they were expecting this year's kindergarten classes to be very, very large. But apparently we're not seeing that in Fargo, maybe? Or do we have this comparison to like, are they choosing to like stay in daycare, or like, I guess I'm trying to understand where these kids are going. If we were expecting this high of a number, are they going to different schools, or are they homeschooling? Where are they going?
We don't always know if there are kids with the kindergarten prediction. I don't know what year it was, and Anne Marie might have to help me with this, but we no longer get it like right from the hospital. They don't give us numbers anymore. So they're using a lot of other methods. In fact, RSP adjusted how they did it last year because coming out of COVID, it was also difficult. And so I think part of it's going to be, we can't say they're all missing as we go forward, but we will get numbers, and it's out of Anne Marie's department, enrollment for our private schools, our home school, the neighboring districts, and that might help us too.
Anne Marie?
Last year, we ended up being over RSP's prediction for kindergarten, but we didn't reach that until into September. We had kids continuing to register even after start of school, even into September. So it'll be interesting to see if we follow that from last year, or when we will kind of settle in for our kindergarten number.
Great. Other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you very much for that report. And I think actually if we are looking at the predictions being that close, that's really quite impressive. Really helps, I think, a lot to prep when it's that accurate. So that's awesome. That's great to see. We are now moving into our consent agenda, and I will look for approval. Namal?
I would like to approve the consent agenda with human capital actions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Namal and a second from Nikki. Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposition, same sign? Okay, and that motion passes 9-0. Moving along to business, our first item is memo 25, and that is going to come to us from Dr. Steiner.
I think we have Dr. Saar and Shelby to present to us on this one. So I'm going to ask that they start and present, and then we'll open up the floor to any questions that you guys have related to these updates.
Great, thank you, Dr. Steiner. Just wanting to kick us off in Strategic Initiative 2, which is a focus on positive school culture and safety. And so I'm going to just do a little oversight of the first three measures that are related to attendance, belonging, and behavior. And then my colleague, Josh Smith, will follow up on the safety piece. So taking a look at belonging, this is the only measure that we have in Strategic Initiative 2 for the current school year that is a carryover from the previous strategic initiative. All the other measures really serve as a baseline measure for this year, although just trying to provide some data wherever some data is available. But as you can see in this measure, belonging has been a specific focus for us in the 23-24, as well as then last year in the 24-25 school year. And it is currently being measured by a single item on the on the climate and culture survey. And so then what you can see is that there was a very nice improvement of 8 percentage points between the 2 years, from spring to spring of both years. And one of the things I think that we are proudest of is that we're starting to see in actually all of our measures, and I think belonging speaks to it, is this vertical alignment. So what we're looking and monitoring within the district strategic plan is very intentionally showing up in our buildings school improvement plans, which means then that they're also putting forth some intentional thought about their school environment and developing plans and meeting needs within their building as well. And as a result, a very nice improvement. One of the pieces that we also have uncovered as a result of having now 2 years of work around this data is that our districts recognize that this single question in the climate and culture survey certainly is a measure and one that we want to continue to monitor, but fully recognize that a student or a staff member's sense of belonging is so much more than just this single question. And so we've started working with some of our buildings who have a desire to know a little bit more about what else besides this single statement of I feel like I belong at my school goes into that sense of belonging. And so many of our buildings have started specifically teaching about what does it mean to belong. And when you think about it, it really is a pretty abstract term. And especially for our younger kids, how do we help lift that off of a survey question and bring it into what does that really feel like? And so all of the work that's been happening in our buildings emphasizes that and is continuing to help us support our buildings. So what you'll see in the learning and adaptations is very consistently in the research is that belonging really is this equation of peer connections, positive relationships with adults, and an inclusive school environment. So trying to look through all of those aspects of it's not just this one question on the survey, but it really encompasses so much more. And so tied to that, we started doing some work as well around a belonging survey, a 22-question belonging survey that's actually out there. So more than just this one question. And we've got a few of our buildings who are starting to dig into that, thinking about how might they use that in their campuses. Even this year to help better inform down to more granular details about how they can continue to improve belonging within their school environments and then ultimately across the district. So with this, we feel like we're on track with belonging. And as we move into behavior, again, this is one of those measures that while you're seeing 2 years of data, this past spring is the first that it was approved and brought into the strategic plan, but just wanting to provide some context as well as to why it may have been brought in. And when you look at the data from the spring of 2024 to last spring, this past spring, you can see that there's been a decrease of 1.75. And so we can, on one hand, we can celebrate that. On the other hand, what we also have discovered through some intentional data digging is that we've got quite a few reporting inconsistencies across our buildings. And so that has already been something that we've started to dig into with our building leaders, our staff members as well, at talking through the lens of how do we ensure that we are capturing these major incident reports all in the same spot so that when we start to take a look at the data, we're sure that it is comprehensive of all of our buildings. One of the pieces that we know has helped us, though, as well, not to spend too much time belaboring that fact, is last year was the first year we had our code of conduct of our code of character our code of character, conduct, and supports that was implemented across all of our buildings this past year. And this fall, as we met with our building leaders, there was a lot of feedback that they appreciated having that guidance document, something to go to in order to ensure that those major behavioral infractions that do occur are being responded to with maybe more consistency or more considerations for consistency across the building, all the while keeping in mind that each of our students is a unique learner and comes with unique circumstances that needs to be considered. So we're continuing to have focus on that. Also this summer, the code was updated and with more intentionality around restorative responses to those behavioral infractions. So again, trying to think through the lens of how can we bring kids into the conversations to talk about where was the misstep, and then also really to analyze what skills might be missing or where might we need to spend some additional time with students to help them understand the accountability that might be associated with it, rather than solely relying on exclusionary discipline practices. This summer as well, as a result of some of that work, we had many of our buildings had the opportunity to complete a PBIS tiered fidelity inventory, that's the TFI, that speaks to the perspective of what kinds of resources do you have at the various tiers to make sure you are equipped to do that teaching for students. And so as a result of that, some of those schools also spent time this afternoon then developing intentional and specific plans for how do they teach what we call in the Fargo Public Schools our guidelines for success. So our common expectations around across all of our grade bands, elementary, middle, and high. And what do those lessons look like? Not just to say, to check the box and say it's been taught, but how then can we keep coming back to that to reinforce, to encourage, to celebrate, and provide many opportunities for that learning to continue. So as we think about moving into this school year, that's a bit of a teaser in terms of what we're expecting in the operational plans. But we are also cognizant that as we work to make sure that our behavior reporting form location is properly used across all of our buildings, that we do run the risk of seeing an uptick in this next year, but with the idea that we are becoming more streamlined and consistent. Then the third measure for attendance, again, this is a measure that is new to the strategic plan as of this spring. And I think what's really important to note here is that the way that we're monitoring attendance for the purpose of the strategic plan is different than how the state monitors attendance rate with an average daily attendance, average daily membership figures. So we are looking at each student and determining whether that student is on target for attendance, at risk for being chronically absent, or if in fact they are chronically absent. And the reason for that is because it allows us really to problem solve each individual situation as it needs to occur. And so what you're seeing on the data that was in your packet as well as what's on your screen is what that percentage is since before COVID. And certainly you can see, as anybody who has been in public education since the pandemic is well aware, is that we had quite a decline as a result of the pandemic. And we continued to provide the great resources and plans that had been previously working. And what the data well indicates is that those same responses didn't bring us back up to where we were before the pandemic hit. And so we have been focusing in this past year, recognizing that the barriers that maybe have been getting in the way, they're still the same barriers, but sadly they're impacting more of our students. So we started to engage in a partnership with EAB, used to be referred to as the Educational Advisory Board, now truly just is EAB, on a partnership, and they do just a tremendous amount of educational research across the country. And so we were able to tap into the work that they have done in many other districts to start working towards that operational plan for the 25-26 school year. And so that is really focusing on what EAB describes as the movable middle. And so thinking through the lens of spending our more of our efforts focusing on students who maybe are at risk or maybe who aren't even in a risk category, but might find themselves as a result of a particular situation. So as we move into this current school year, we have put in place a number of improvements as it relates to attendance, and we're hopeful that we're going to see the needle move. But some of those improvements that are worth, I think, mentioning are we have reports that our buildings receive and historically have always received, but that first report historically has not come until the student's ninth absence. As a result of that, that feels like, man, that's a lot of school time before maybe that report or alert comes through. Certainly, we hope our teachers and our staff members recognize it before the report comes. But what we've also put into place then is a 3-day and a 6-day alert that just ensures that our building leadership teams are made aware of any students after they've missed 3 days or 6 days of school so that they can immediately begin that preventative and proactive response to supporting students. One of the other things that we've done on our district website and then all of the subsequent building websites is just been more intentional about putting the attendance information where it's accessible. One of the activities that those of us who participated in the learning modules this spring did was to kind of wear a hat of a parent and who didn't know how to access the school to report an absence. And where do you go and where would you find that information? And we struggled. We didn't know. Like, where is this housed on our website? And so that became quickly a priority for us. And so there is now an attendance section that's on the About Us page of all of those pieces that's clearly labeled attendance. That includes the numbers, the email addresses in order to report absences. But then it also includes things like, when is too sick to come to school? Not too many years ago, if you had a sniffle or a cough, we were encouraging you to stay home. Now, please, we want you to come to school with a sniffle and a cough and trying to help caregivers who might just need that re-education about, when is it too sick or when can kids come to school. Additionally, on the pages, there are community resources. So any families that might be experiencing difficulties with food insecurity, transportation, housing, there are resources that are there for them to tap into as well. And then one of the things that will happen monthly is each month, all of our buildings will receive an opportunity to include in their social media roles as well as their newsletters, but will also be on the district's social media pages and newsletters are what we're calling attendance nudges. Kind of just little one-liner reminders about why attendance is important. And then in that same month will be a lengthier article that further describes maybe some of the research or ways that they can help support their child or the child that they're supporting in their home to continue improving and staying the course when it comes to attendance. And then by all means, we continue our partnerships as well with our psychologists, our social workers, and our community partners to make sure that families are connected to resources when some additional support beyond what the school is able to provide, that they have that support as well. So we're looking forward to that. And I also want to just highlight, we have 3 buildings, Virtual Academy, Fargo South, and Claire Barton Hawthorne, that are all engaging even deeper in that EAB partnership. And they have developed very specific building plans. And sometimes that might include incentives, that might include privileges that they are trying to encourage as another means of not only monitoring, but including the student in the process of improving student attendance. So again, as you see for attendance, this just really has us at risk, which is why it was part of the process of being a measure that was included in the strategic plan, because we know we've got some work to do here. And so we're looking forward to seeing that needle move. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to Josh.
Dr. Sarr, can we actually do questions for you first? And then, sorry, Josh, I just want to create more anxiety for you to wait a little longer, but
So
I think, so
if
it's
I can
just
just
fresh
add
in
one
there.
more thing then, just I think we just wanted to be sure that everybody understood that we are feeling so good about where we are at with these 4 measures through the lens that all of our building leaders have really been involved in the development of not just the measures, but also thinking through that operational plan lens. Because we know it has to be feasible and doable at the building level and applicable, right? It has to be real for them. And so they have been really involved with that. And so one of the last pieces that I wanted to mention in our time is that we have checkpoints. So Strategic Initiative 1 as well as Strategic Initiative 2 has a plan this year for meeting with those building leaders every month, and we're alternating Initiative 1 and 2 to look at each one of these data points as to see what kind of progress we're making, but then also to have more of that conversation about what's working in the various locations so that we can continue to make this that living opportunity to lift the work into reality rather than waiting for the end of the year in an autopsy format. So I just wanted to add that as well.
So do we have questions about this specific part of the presentation from Dr. Sarr? Go ahead.
I had a meeting recently with a legislator who was very frustrated with the attendance policies. And I had to remind them that that is actually a state law that our legislators made. So has it changed from days to minutes when that definition was changed at the state level? Do you remember? Or what is the threshold now for missing days or hours?
So chronic absenteeism is defined by days missed. And so anytime you hit that 10% of the days possible to attend, then you would be classified as that chronic absenteeism. So so days really is what it accounts to. In our districts, in some ways, we sometimes will also calculate periods for our secondaries, recognizing that an 8-period day equals 1 day. And so sometimes when there are absences in between, we also take a look at missed periods.
So I assume that that aligns with state law.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Allie.
Just kind of following up on that, do we have the data broken out where we can see if it's like an excused absence or like an unexcused absence, where we're looking at the absenteeism? Like, I know obviously like people are sick or traveling or sports, what have you, right? Like there is potentially valid reasons for kiddos to be missing school, whereas there's also potentially non-valid reasons, right? Where they're unexcused absences where parents haven't called them in. Do we have that breakout?
We do. So all of our absences are logged in PowerSchool with the various attendance codes that are in the background then tied to whether it's an excused absence or an unexcused absence. And I think one of the things too that we're trying to elevate is recognizing that when a student is gone, regardless of whether it's an excused or an unexcused absence, it's always a day of missed instruction. And so also trying to elevate that topic of conversation on the attendance page, for instance, there is a vacation planning guide. Also trying to encourage our families that might be prone to taking vacations, that it would benefit their child if those vacations could align with days off from school. Again, with the idea that we're trying to really emphasize and focus that any day away, regardless of excused or unexcused, is a lost instructional day.
Just piggybacking on that a little bit further, do we have, going back to one of our core responsibilities, which is that accountability piece, right? So if they're missing instruction, they've obviously got assignments or components that go with that in terms of required learning. Is there ever a way that they could earn those absences back, if you will, right? If they've put in all of the work that they needed to do outside of the classroom, if they were missed for some reason, like, do we have, I guess, looking more beyond just the fact that we've got kids absent, right? Like these kids that are absent, like, are they following up and doing the things that they need to do? Or are they just like truant? Because I know we don't really have consequences for kids that aren't in school anymore in terms of like parental consequences. We used to have that, but we don't anymore. So just kind of trying to understand a little bit
I
further.
don't know that any of our buildings have implemented anything that they earn days back. Again, I think when I talk about our buildings who are going a little bit deeper with the EAB implementation, it's been more about some of those privileges or those opportunities that they can earn with attending school.
Missy?
I think what I would just add is that the evidence-based reporting, that's what we're really trying to, regardless of attendance, in a sense, that if someone can show us they know it or retest, we're always going to give opportunity. We're not going to penalize someone through that. The other thing I just wanted to comment on is what we found, if you really get into excused, unexcused, and all some of those things, sometimes we're seeing some discrepancies about access for people. And so some families are very good about learning a system and calling in, and maybe even calling in something that shouldn't be excused, but they know what to say. So we just want to be really careful with holding that against or for. We find it gets a little complicated when we start breaking it down.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, Namal?
Hi, Dr. Sarr. Thank you for the presentation. It's really wonderful. But I do have almost similar to her question, but is a bit different in a way. I understand FPS is continuing initiative to build positive school culture and safety to improve belonging for all students. What I want to understand is I know that you had wonderful data here based on the belonging piece. That's where my question going to be. I was wondering, is there any breakdown of data for other student of color, basically, so we can have a breakdown? Doesn't have to be the student of color, but it can be all the student. At least we will know where they really, what is really going on their mind, because the survey, you do put the survey out there as well. I just would really see it, if we can have a breakdown, for what's going on, personally, like how many students, feel like they don't belong, just like what you guys did last year, and so forth. I would really love to see that. I think it would really set a lot of tones, where can we really work in at the same time too, that can address the attendance too as well. So at least I would really love to see that piece in there.
And I'm hopeful that that's something we're going to be able to do better as we move into this current school year. For the last 2 years, we have used the Cognia platform, in which the survey really is anonymous. And so that has been the state's platform that we have utilized. And so there's nothing identifying in that survey that allows us to drill down into that individual, in order to disaggregate into various groups. As we're moving forward for this school year, we are going to move away from Cognia and likely are going to use something as simple as a Google form, where that might be available to us. And I say might because I think one of the pieces that we're also struggling with is also trying to collect as much data as we can in order to have that type of information, while also honoring the anonymity that comes along with asking certain types of questions, specifically as it relates to belonging. Certainly for attendance and behavior, those are options that are available for us to further disaggregate, that certainly could be pulled and provided. And then I would just echo what you've said, Namal, as well. Attendance, behavior, belonging, and safety are these pieces, right, that really do reinforce each other, knowing that as we focus on one, likely we see improvements in the others.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like I said, this is a great PowerPoint presentation, and also the data. I'm just glad that you answered that question. And I hope that next year we'll be able to see a bit more, what's going on. Because I understand, majority of our students definitely, when I sit down, on the students, superintendent and the students, having meetings and so forth, they definitely, like to speak about the fact that, oh, I don't feel like I belong here. And do you tell your teacher, or did you tell the principal or whoever is near you, and so forth? I would just love to hear their voice, a bit more, because it's definitely will set a lot of tone moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Nikki, did you have something to add?
Not much more, because as I listened, most of my questions were answered. But I do have just a quick question. When you had mentioned that finding a place to report attendance was difficult, I have done some more research in different areas about how many clicks and all those kinds of things. I don't know if it's possible. You had mentioned it was going under the About Us section. And again, I question, how would people know to look in that section? Is there anything we could do, just a thought, to put something on our main page so it's easily accessible and there aren't many clicks? Would that help? I don't know.
Yep, I
but-
appreciate that. And I think your question too, while it is on the About Us page in the left-hand column where the red bars are, also right through the middle of each page are a variety of, maybe areas that are often referenced, and attendance is also one of those. So you can get to the same spot by selecting either. So hopefully that is a response to that as well.
Okay, do you have another question? I have several. Oh, how about one? Can you pick your favorite?
Sure. Let me review my questions if I only get one.
Okay, or two, but keeping in mind, we do have two more speakers to share on this presentation.
Ally brought up the point of, like, do we have a policy in terms of like a buyback? So my former district, we did do a buyback policy. And it was somewhat successful. And I say somewhat is we couldn't really figure out what the learning part was when they would come in to buy back their time. because obviously being in the classroom looks different than engaging in learning independently. But I think there were smart enough people in our district that we could consider having some discussions around that. Because we did find when kids found out, like, once you went to your max number, you were going to come in, like, for you to earn credit. We saw kids start to play the game of being in school right up to those numbers, but it was better than them playing the game and being way over those numbers. So there are some districts that have done some nice buyback things.
Okay, sorry, Greg. I want you to be able to answer your question or ask your questions. Just we do have 2 other speakers too, so I did kind of want to keep us moving along.
So as far as the inconsistency in behavior reporting, how did you become aware of inconsistencies? That seems to be a data point that I would expect to be an unknown unknown.
I think I think it's something that we were recognizing through conversations all throughout the year. I think where it was really affirmed is when we were doing some work this summer in preparation for bringing staff back, and in theory, we really were looking at suspension data, and to be able to tie student suspensions to behavior reports is where we saw the greatest inconsistencies. And then through additional conversations, just recognizing that they aren't those types of responses weren't necessarily occurring in the behavior reporting form, perhaps even when a suspension occurred. And so ultimately from there is where we were able to confirm that there were those inconsistencies.
Do you think the inconsistencies would justify this measure being removed from the strategic plan?
My hope is that by having it in the strategic plan would help us become more consistent. That it really is, there's this idea that what gets inspected gets respected, or what gets monitored gets valued. And so through that lens, I think there is space to support the importance of making sure that those reports are being reported in one spot. I think too, I just want to add that for many years before we had the behavior reporting form, specifically at our secondary buildings, they were using another area within Power School to document that type of information. And like all of us who fall in love with a procedure and a process, sometimes that can take some additional support to shift. And so while it may not have been reported in a way that's easy for us to quantify, in many cases, it was living in this other location that does require kind of an incident by incident read through if you were going to classify it in the same way.
Greg, do you have another question?
Not on behavior.
Okay, go ahead, Robin.
I just have a quick comment. And I had the same question, and most of what you just mentioned is listed in your report. So thank you for the report itself. My thought was, when I read the report, how are we going to evaluate our new superintendent on data that wasn't fully accurate? I think that's what you're getting at, and how we move forward as a board evaluating the success of the operational plan. I don't think that's something we can answer here, but I think that's what every board member should consider.
Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, as far as the attendance goes, I was a little hazy on the timeline of the 3 pilot school projects. Were those during the 24-25 school year?
No, in the spring of last year, 24-25 is when we did the educational modules, and truly it started in late April through May. And then this summer is when those schools had worked on developing those action plans. So they are just going into the first year of that implementation.
Okay. Then the report says that the pilots are informing a system-wide shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how a pilot that hasn't had any students days yet, how do those pilots inform a system-wide shift?
The intention behind that was the learning that occurred in 24-25 that's informing their individual buildings is what has prompted the shifts with Power School, with our attendance reporting, the attendance section on the website, the educational information that will go out. So through that lens, that work is what is supporting the entire district in that shift.
Is that good? Anything else?
I have one more question, but it'll be after safety.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we've made it to the end of your presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello, Josh Smith, Safety Emergency Management Coordinator. Just excited to talk about Measure 4. Looking back last year, we had a couple of safety measures that were focused on specifically drill completion rates of our buildings and one specific training module for safety for our staff. And as we hit those marks last year, we got to looking at it and realized that there's a lot of other data, a lot of other points that go into building safety overall, not just if everyone did their drills for the month. So that is where this idea came up to build what we are now going to call a site safety score. So this is just taking lots of active data points right now across the district, bringing them all into what we've identified as 4 different pillars, and to add those all up to build our general site safety score. This year is going to be a pretty busy year of collecting the data and finishing the development of the dashboard to give to the principals to review it. But we hope that by the end of the year, we'll be able to look across all of our buildings and compare apples to apples and see where we're at with these scores, and then develop our benchmarks and our expectations to look forward and grow from there. Short and sweet.
Oh, is that, okay, great. Greg, is this where you had your questions? Was safety, right?
It wasn't actually about safety. It was about the strategic initiative overall that I had another question
okay.
on. I mean, this measure was, hey, it's new. We don't have any data or anything to discuss. So
Okay.
I don't know what to ask about it.
Okay, Robin.
It looks like there aren't any questions, so I would make a motion to accept that reasonable progress has been made and results Strategic Initiative 2 for the 25-26 school year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Robin and a second from Nikki. More discussion. Any other questions? Okay, well, I think you're getting, okay, yes.
I don't have a question for our current speaker.
Okay.
This is more for the board, because as we know in our results policies, it's not just about the exact measures in front of us. It's more of a holistic approach. And the one component that I think may have been missing from some of the measures in the packet we got in the presentation. So the results for this strategic initiative is that FPS will implement processes to create a sense of belonging for all students and staff in physically and psychologically supportive environments. And we haven't really touched on the staff part of that. So far, it's really been about the sense of belonging and safety for all students, but we haven't talked about staff. And I was wondering if anyone had any thoughts on that.
I also noticed that, Greg. Thanks for bringing it up. I think, is there anything to share with staff, Dr. Saar? I mean, as far as any of the results or anything like that, I think that's a huge part of belonging. When they belong, when they feel a sense of belonging in our district, it goes into the classroom to the kids, helps with retention for staff and things like that. So
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think when we talk about just this little equation of belonging, peer connections, positive relationships with adults, and inclusive school environment, that is for certain. The measures as they're currently written, and I can appreciate what you're saying, are all student facing. Our human capital department really has done a tremendous amount of work in gathering information through the Vital Survey and other ways. And so certainly Dr. McCanna might have more to share there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so when we look at staff, we looked at really 3 touch points. We looked at staff that were with us the first day of school, and how many of those same staff were with us at the last day of school. Consistency, right? And when we look at that, and we still have to dig a little bit more into the data, but about 98.2% of the staff that started with us the first day of school, I'm really focusing on teachers, were with us on the last day of school. That's one data point. The next data point is kind of a moving target really across the state of North Dakota because we don't really have a hard resignation deadline like you'll find in most places. So the next data point was what was the staff that were active the last day? We randomly picked a day. How many of those same staff members were still active on July the 28th? And that was about 94.6%. So if they were with us the last day of school, how many of those same staff were with us on that date? Most places, you'll have a resignation deadline of like July 1st, right? 45 days before the first day of instruction. Here, staff members can leave, teachers can leave almost right before school starts, and it really impacts student. The third, probably the most important one that we looked at is, and we're still digging a little bit into this one, so just a little bit of grace on this. How many of the staff members that scored a 3 or a 4, which is our highest measures on our teacher evaluation, how many of those staff members will be with us the first day of school this year, right? So tomorrow we'll take a look at how many people got a 3 and a 4 last year, and then how many of those same people are back. Because we really want to know, are we keeping our most highly effective teachers in the classroom? So until tomorrow, when the kids actually report, we don't have that data piece yet, but it's maybe like 97, 96% of those highest effective teachers are in our classroom. Are returning. That's our retention rate.
Robin?
That's some hard data. One term I didn't hear mentioned in here was trauma-informed care. And as administrators and teachers learn trauma-informed care, they become more self-aware, not only for how they work with their students, but themselves. So I think that might be a leading indicator as well, that this report is focused on students, correct? So I would expect there's some other things happening within the staff. Thank you for mentioning that. It's so important. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments right now? Okay, I think we have one more. Or are we done? Oh, sorry, I thought you had something to share too. Pardon me, I am sorry. Okay. Okay, sorry. You're just here for support. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, so any other questions or comments then from the board on this particular topic? Okay, are we ready to do the roll call? Yeah, let's do it.
Clark,
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Olenberger,
Yes.
Brooklyn,
Yes.
Christensen Meinier.
Yes, and that motion passes 9-0. All right, so our next business item is memo number 26, and this comes to us from Tara Brandner.
As this board is aware, on July 8th and August 12th of 2025, we met in executive session and you provided us, Rick Flaxbarth and myself, negotiating strategy and provided us instructions on moving forward with a potential purchase offer for the property located at 1404 7th Street South, which is essentially sitting right next to the Clara Barton school building. Based on the strategy and the instructions that you provided us during those executive sessions, Rick and I were able to move forward and we provided an offer and negotiated with the seller of that home and were ultimately able to agree to the sale and a purchase agreement of that house for $275,000. The only change is that we will be in charge of paying Rick's commission, which is approximately 3%. Other than that, we are ready to go. We have the purchase agreement signed and we would just look to you for approval.
Okay, Robin?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase agreement for the property located at 1404 7th Street South in Fargo for $275,000.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Robin and a second from Ally. Do we have any questions or discussion?
The only thing I would say is if there is any discussion, please just keep what happened in executive session within executive session to the group.
Do you still want to ask your question? So what happened in executive session, that is confidential, that's executive
Yeah, I know.
content.
I'm just
So we need
thinking
to be mindful of that.
I'm just thinking about how I want to word it. topic was asked about taking things out of the home. I just wanted to understand where we've landed on that.
So we haven't finalized that list of items that they're going to remove, the sellers are going to remove from the home yet, but that is something that Rick, Jackie, and I will all work through with James Hand, just to make sure ultimately our goal will be to ensure the safety of the property while we are transitioning through that process. Great question.
Other question? Other questions? No? Comments? Okay, Anne Marie, let's do the roll call, please.
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Gullickson,
Yes.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Bolenberger,
Yes.
Berkland,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Christensen Meineer.
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Okay, we are now on to board reports. And so for our committee liaison and correspondence reports, I am going to start with Ally and just work our way around the dais.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. So first of all, happy school eve to everybody. I know that there's a lot of excitement as all of our kids get to come back in the buildings tomorrow. Our teachers have been back for a week. So just wanted to wish everybody a happy first day of school tomorrow. I had the opportunity to sit in on the professional development day with Fargo South. And let me tell you, not only was the theme rock stars, but that school was palpating with energy and awesomeness. It was so fun to be a part of. And I'm just really looking forward to being a part of everything that happens at South this year. As a diehard Northsider, it's hard for me to say that sometimes, but they are doing fantastic things there, and I'm so grateful to be included in that. I'm looking forward to my upcoming liaison visits with the why am I not self-directed? Thank you, Kristen. I was like, it was the other one that's right there next to Lewis and Clark. Anyways, yes, the Explorer Academy, I'm coming up with them next week. I'm excited to get into there and to see all the awesome things happening around our district. So that's all on my end.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep, I was able to tour Longfellow last week with Mr. Hendrickson, and then also attended the board meeting for C3 Tech, and then had the opportunity to watch all the videos around cell phone policy. I think our district did an outstanding job. They're short, to the point, and very informative, so thanks for taking the time to do that.
Thank you, Jason. Namal?
Yes, I attended all the staff. I think that it was really great. All of you guys did amazing speech. Especially like the theme for this year's Stronger Together. I think it's one of my strongest ones. I always use we are stronger together because if we're not, we wouldn't move forward, right? I have not, oh yeah, I forget that piece too. My son was there too at the all staff meetings. I mean, yeah, celebration, I put it that way. He was having fun because he was going around the Davies High School, and everybody was wondering probably by the end of the sessions, it was very funny. But anyway, he had fun. I have not went to my school liaison yet, but I'm planning to go soon, and I think it's going to be fun school year for me, and I think that I'm ready to start. Thank you.
Thanks, Namal. Nikki?
Thank you. August 13th, I attended AI and Education through COSBA. August 20th, I did the Brunch and Learn through NDSBA. And last night, went to back to school night for Virtual Academy because they're set up just a little bit different. So really loved everything they had to offer. For those that are participating on the CEA committee, expect some correspondence coming pretty soon here. We're going to look at some dates and get some things set up. So that's it for now.
Thank you. Robin?
Yes, thank you. Governmental Affairs Committee related, I did attend a chamber event for the Public Policy Committee where Senator Hoban was there. I did speak to him about some of the withholding of funds from school districts and the pain points that they cause. Also attended, I'm on the North Dakota School Boards Association Governmental Affairs Committee, which is different than their legislative committee. We worked on some resolutions that will come forth at the convention in October. I attended the NDSBA Brunch and Learn, which was about public comment. And of course, Anne Marie has us all set up to do everything right. Attended on August 21st a strategic planning meeting, the second, maybe one of the last for one of the departments of SEEC for the North Dakota After School Network, which will now be starting to be called the North Dakota Out of School Time Network. I went to support Dr. Steiner at Concordia. He was on a panel for project-based learning, and Denise Jonas was also there, and he made us proud. He continues to make us proud, make me proud anyway. You did a great job. So your delivery is very relatable, and I appreciated that. I did attend Lincoln's Back to School Night last night. It was great to be back in the schools and talk to the kids and the educators, and everybody's raring to go. Lots of questions about cell phone policies. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. And then upcoming here for Governmental Affairs Committee, our next meeting is scheduled for September 5th at noon on Friday. That will be our formative meeting, and then we will also determine our meetings going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg?
Really, the only thing to report is I attended the FPS Foundation meeting, the first one of the year, on the 20th. And planning meets for the first time this year next week.
Thank you very much. Melissa?
Yeah, yesterday I had a wonderful meeting at Jefferson with Beth Olson and their new AP, Jason Milkey. Jefferson has so many exciting things going on. This is the first year, and I guess our only site that we have a preschool at, and so it was really neat to see that room and talk to her about that. And they are making some really phenomenal changes. I learned a lot. And then the best part was, this was right before back to school night, and they let me be a part of the open the doors and let all of the kids come in. So that was really special. It was just great. And I know they're really excited and really ready for a wonderful year. And we do have our first negotiations meeting set. It is September 18th. It does not look like the third Thursday of the month is going to work ongoing. So we'll have a discussion about future dates at that time, but be watching your inboxes for some pre-meeting materials.
Thank you, Melissa. Kristen?
Yeah, I was able to attend, I've been at Discovery a lot lately, Discovery's 6th grade Eagle Camp. That was super fun to see all of the incoming 6th graders and several 6th graders that remember me from my days at the YMCA. So they are excited and ready to go. And then just meet and talk to the teachers and the staff at Eagle Camp. But then I also attended back to school night the same week on the last Thursday. That was exciting. That school, we welcomed over 1,300 people through the doors at back to school night at Discovery. It was busy, but it was fun, and everybody's ready to go. That school is there's just a different energy at that school, and I'm just so excited to be there. I met all the educators, I think, I tried to get to every pod, and I told some, after hearing what they do, that I really want to get in their classroom and see what they do, especially our ML math teacher, who I came on a little strong to after she introduced me, because she's a first-year teacher. And I was like, oh, I want to get in your school. And so I think I overwhelmed her. So I owe her an apology. Then I was at Self-Directed Academy today with Dr. Dietrich and all of her staff, attending a staff meeting there. And we just sat around the table and talked about how that school serves our kids and the meaning to the kids to have that school as part of our offerings here at Fargo Public. These kids do not take their education there for granted, at all. They're so grateful to be there. And with that, I've had some communication from parents of 9th graders who would really like that to continue. So that's something that I think needs to be on the agenda coming up here. I do want to say at Discovery, your site visits from the cabinet and you, Dr. Steiner, were really well received. That really was a really bright spot for the educators there. That was huge. So, and then I attended the opening. So, that was it.
Great, thank you, everyone. I will share that during my time, I've gotten to most of my liaison visits. I met with North's administration, had a great conversation with them. I was able to tour the Adult Learning Center, and that is just a fascinating program that I think is just not necessarily as well known. You know, obviously our buildings, like people tend to know where those are, you know, the names of them. But our Adult Learning Center last year, they served over 1,300 people between the ages of 6 weeks and 72 years old. And that's because they have an Even Start program there. And so the children can be down in that Even Start, I say down because it's downstairs, in that program while the adults are learning. It's a mixture of GED students and then language learners. Really just a phenomenal program that they have. So if you think about that's 1,300 people, especially when you think about adult learning centers, like these are people that are taking very, very intentional steps towards furthering their education at a time in their life that might not feel quite as traditional. And it's pretty amazing there. I also, another liaison I have is the Early Childhood Special Education, ECSE, same building. And last year they served well over 400 kids. And so as Missy shared, I think that number is around 145 right now, but I'm sure we'll see that go up quite a bit. So these are 3 and 4 year olds. And the principal was very proud to share that when the students leave ECSE, the principals and the teachers with the kindergartners, they don't worry about these kids because they're ready to go, that they've had a really great education and they're really set to head off into kindergarten. And I am really looking forward to being back in these buildings when there are actual students in them, so it'll be even more exciting. So I still need to get to Madison, not there quite yet. And then I also attended the all-staff opener, and I'd echo what everyone else said, especially the 3 award winners. If you haven't listened to them, do it. Like their speeches were just this perfect blend of heartwarming moments, little bit of tear-jerking, and humor, and it'll just really get you inspired and ready for the school year. I did want to share one other last thing, is that make sure you have your calendar marked for October 9th and 10th, since that's the NDSBA annual convention in Bismarck. Before we head to that, I would recommend kind of checking over GP 14, which is our board policy on travel, and just remind everyone that we are traveling for the purposes of our board development, and that this is covered by the district. So I really ask that people be mindful of attending the sessions and be actively engaged while we're there during that time. And we do have our work session immediately following this, so don't leave, please. So our next meeting is September 9th. It is 6:37 p.m. and we are adjourned.